LeBron and the Lakers are 20-6 this season in their quest to defend their title, but still second in the West behind the Utah Jazz. Kawhi and Paul George's Clippers are in third and on their heels just a few games back. Perk still here with us. Max, who's the biggest threat to the Lakers in the West?
Well, I started out the season by saying it could be the Mavericks, but I have to say, and they started to win more recently, but Porzingis is always coming back from injury. And they've gone through COVID issues this year. I believe the Mavericks are going to be very dangerous by the time the playoffs roll around. But at this point, the way they're playing, it's got to be the Los Angeles Clippers. Guys, we know, like, you think the Clippers, you think Kawhi and Paul George. And I don't expect Kawhi to choke again in a Game 7. Although I also don't think you can rely on Paul George to be a superstar in the playoffs. But it may not matter. Like, you think of the Clippers, you think the supporting cast, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Marcus Morris, and it's a good supporting cast. But they didn't, the tweaks they made to the roster, mainly I thought they upgraded with Serge Ibaka. Montrezl Harrell's a good player. Serge Ibaka can do a lot of the things Montrezl Harrell can do defensively, and he can block shots, and he can shoot. So I thought they were marginally improved there. They really needed a guy like Rondo. They didn't get him. But I didn't know Nick Batum could still play. Nicholas Batum was a guy who got, if he didn't get a max deal not that, several years ago, it was something close to it. And most people think, most people thought at the time, he's like one of those statless all-star guys. The numbers don't jump out at you. But in every facet of the game, he helps your team. But he got his money and was in a non-competitive situation and seemed to lose interest. He's Nick Batum again, it seems like. So that's actually an under-the-radar improvement to that team that was already pretty deep. And now you look at them and you go, Kawhi and Paul George and Batum and Ibaka and Lou Will and Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris, they got a whole lot of. And Perk, at this moment, if the playoffs were to start today, that's the team that would trouble the Lakers the most, I think.
Well, I'm going to say this. The Utah all of it. And if it's one team in the West that could beat the Lakers in the West and challenge them, it's the Utah Jazz. When I look at this team is not lacking at nothing. They have everything. You want defense? They rank top 5 in every statistical category. You want offense? They rank top 5 in every statistical category. And then they have a head coach who I think don't get enough praise in Quinn Snyder, who's a hell of an X's and O's type guy. But when you look at their roster, they have shooting in Bogdanovich, Jordan Clarkson, who in my opinion is a 6th Man of the Year candidate, who's leading the league and scoring off the bench right now. You have Joe Ingles, okay? Bird, a defensive player of the year. They have Derek.
All right, Perk, I think we're okay.
They have Derek Favors, okay?
You're breaking up for a bit, but it's fine.
They have Derek Favors, a backup center that come in and they don't lack at that position. Mike Conley is starting to play like the Mike Conley that we saw in Memphis. And Donovan Mitchell, he has took a tremendous leap. We all know that he could get buckets. We know that he could score in his sleep. We witnessed that last year in the playoffs. But now he's taking another step in making guys better. He's dropping dimes. He's creating passes on time, on target. So if it's any team in the West right now, today, that could challenge the Los Angeles Lakers and beat them, it's the Utah Jazz.
Only problem with the Jazz is I hear what you're saying. You're right about all that. Bogdanovich and Gobert, you have the offense, you have the shooting, the defense, and Donovan Mitchell can go get you a bucket basically whenever he wants. But they lost to Denver last year because they really had one guy who can be an MVP when you need him most in Donovan Mitchell. And Denver had two, in Jamal Murray and Jokic. And when I look at this team, Perk, and as much as I know it's not about hero ball and all that, if you have an efficient team, look at the Spurs once upon a time. But when you're playing other teams who can do a lot of the stuff you can do, and they have two guys who can go do it like that, it's different. Mike Conley was no good in last year's playoffs, and he's always been one of my favorite players. But he is going to have to be that guy who can also go get the bucket when you most need it for them to be what you're saying in the playoffs.
But Max, to your point, they took the Denver Nuggets to 7 games, okay? And Jamal Murray had an out-of-body experience, in my opinion. He went
So did
off.
Donovan, though.
But look, they were missing a 20-point score. Bogdanovich wasn't there. This is a huge piece that they were missing last year in the bubble. Now they got him back, and he's playing phenomenal basketball, Max.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.